You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us. Hello, I am Andrea McCallum, your host of Spirit Crumbs. I am also an intuitive oracle card reader and an energy healer. I have my level 2 of Yusui Reiki, and I am a Grand Master in Quantum Reiki. Throughout my life, I have also dabbled in many different spiritual modalities and practices, many of which I still use today. The only things that I would consider myself an expert on are my own experience and spirit crumbs. Today, we are going to answer the most obvious question: what are spirit crumbs? These tiny little hints from the universe are tangible signs pointing us in the direction of our own spiritual or life path. Before I can really get into the details of spirit crumbs, I need to talk about a few other concepts that are directly linked and inseparable from spirit crumbs. Those are intuition, synchronicity, and serendipity. We'll start with intuition, since it's one that most of us are familiar with. It's that voice in the back of your head that is your higher self planting a seed and something that really catches your attention. So when you just feel it in your body, like something feels right, or when you have that little hint that comes up, like, why am I all of a sudden thinking about spirit crumbs? Or why am I all of a sudden thinking about Reiki? And those things we are a little bit more familiar with, but we don't always know what to do with it. The next one is synchronicity. And this is, for me, when something comes up to mirror an intuition you've already had. So if you were using the example of Reiki, you might then run into a person who mentions Reiki or hear it talked about on a podcast. But sometimes this can still leave us a little bit uncertain because we don't really know what to do next. And often in relation to synchronicity, this can also be when something just appears for us that we're like, wow, where did this come from? I can't believe I was just thinking about this. And then all of a sudden, this came up. This person was put in my path. And then the one that's directly related to synchronicity is the spirit crumb. And for me, it's still very close to being synchronicity where something shows up. But for me, this is the tangible thing that you can take action on that leads you to the next step. So if we're still talking about Reiki, I had many, many synchronicities where, I would have a reading and the psychic or medium would tell me, you would be great with energy healing. You should do something like Reiki. And then I would hear it on a podcast. I even had a cashier at Goodwill mention Reiki to me out of nowhere. I had a friend at the same time as that who mentioned that she used to go for these appointments when she was younger for Reiki or an energy healing. And these were all synchronicities because I still didn't know what the next step was. And then a little while after that, I actually randomly joined a tarot card challenge with Amanda from Conscious Clarity Healing, another friend had shared, and I decided I was going to do this challenge. It just seemed fun. It was during quarantine, and it was just one card a day that represented something. And while I was doing this challenge, Amanda announced that she was doing her Reiki level 1 course soon. And for me, that was the spirit crumb. I already really had become familiar with her energy. I was really comfortable with her. And I was like, you know what? I already have known, and I've been getting more and more synchronicities coming up, which to me is a sign you're close to a crumb. Because the more synchronicities that come up, the more you're like, okay, spirit wants me to do this, but I don't know how. So when the opportunity comes up, for me, that is the spirit crumb because I can actually take action on that. And so when that was posted and it went live and she had this course launched, I immediately signed up because I knew that was the right time for me. And so that is just kind of how that works. And the last one that I mentioned, the serendipity, is probably my favorite part of all of this because for me, serendipity is the magic that weaves it all together. So the energy that is moving everything in your path and then really making it all come together behind the scenes. And then it's also for me when you're at the point where you've already been on the path, you've followed the spirit crumb, and you can look back and see how all of these things connected. For me, that is serendipity. And Serendipity is actually my favorite movie as well. Well, I have many favorite movies, but it's the one that I come back to the most because of that feeling that the movie has. It has the energy of serendipity because as a viewer, you are watching all of the behind the scenes from both of them that are bringing them together. I'm probably going to do a whole episode on this movie just because it's a really good one to like dissect in terms of Spirit Crumbs. I may also have a guest on for that one too, because I have a few people in my life who are also equally obsessed with this movie. And the movie also brings up another point to me, which is that you need to have awareness. That's the key. After you get that intuition, you have to be aware of what is coming to you, paying attention when you're listening to the radio or when you're having a conversation with someone and a particular topic comes up. And so I just really wanted to kind of make sure that we keep that in mind too, that it doesn't just magically come up if we're not paying attention. We may be receiving, well, we are receiving these synchronicities and spirit crumbs all the time. It's just that sometimes we're so busy. And so I just wanted to put this into steps as well and realize that the first step is the intuition. You have the idea, it's in the back of your head. Then you have the awareness. You're just like on your radar, you put it out there. So let's say you're hoping to figure out what your next step is and you really don't know. And then your intuition says to you, I really feel like I need a change in my spiritual world. Like I just feel like there's something more and I don't know what it is. And then you pay attention to the coincidences that come up, the synchronicities. And these are the confirmations that you're on the right path. So if you're thinking about something, like I said before, let's still use Reiki as an example. You're thinking about Reiki, but you're like, I don't really know why. And then you are listening to a podcast that's totally unrelated and someone mentions that they had a Reiki treatment. That's a confirmation. So you can then start to think, maybe I should look into this. And maybe you start Googling Reiki, you start following some people on Instagram, you do something that's kind of a step, but you're still not really sure what to physically take action on, but you're just confirming to the universe, like, yes, I'm interested in this. Then the next step is usually either you'll have a lot of synchronicities in a row that'll lead you to the spirit crumb, or the spirit crumb may just appear. And so, like in my case, the synchronicity came through me hearing from other weird, really strange sources. I didn't expect to hear Reiki come up, like the cashier at Goodwill. And then I was presented with this opportunity when Amanda decided to launch this Reiki online course and attunement with her. And so that was something, it's an aha moment where I'm like, here's my chance. I can actually do this. This is a step where I can see where this takes me. And that's the exciting part when you get to that point where it's a tangible thing where you can do it. So this may sometimes come in different forms. It may be like a book or a course or something different, but it's always something that you can actually do where it leads you to the next step. And then the serendipity, like I can sit here now, I've now done 2 different types of Reiki. I've started working with patients and clients and starting to see how powerful this really is for people, and realizing that my avoidance of it this whole time really was just prolonging the amount of time it took me to be able to do this work. I've been called to it for a long time, had a lot of serendipity and synchronicity along the way in other areas, but this particular thing, the spirit crumb, came more recently. And so the serendipity for me is kind of cool to see all of the things that led me to here and realize that even though they're all very different areas of my life where I was getting these synchronicities, that the spirit crumb came when it was the right time. And so I think that's another key for me too, is that the serendipity is often a reflection of the timing and trying to show you that like everything happens in divine timing. That's the part we don't have control of. That's what the serendipity and like spirit is they're the ones orchestrating these things, so it's on their timing. We just get to decide what the thing is or what the question is that we're putting out to them, and then our awareness and openness is what's required in order to lead us on our path. But I also wanted to just make the point because I know a lot of people, the reason even sometimes I would question concepts of serendipity or synchronicity is because it sounds very out there. It sounds very magical. And sometimes it can be hard for us to really trust that that is accessible to us and that it's achievable, because it just, even watching the movie, you're like, how did all this stuff come together? It's so magical. There's no way that's realistic. But I just wanted to point out that it's not always even like spiritual and romantic things that spirit brings us these spirit crumbs for. It's the intention of spirit and the universe, however you look at it, for us to have a balanced life. We are still humans. We're having a human experience. And so I just wanted to briefly touch on the three areas of life that we are familiar with, because everything is connected. So the three areas of life that I find these synchronicities, this whole three S's is what I like to call it, the, synchronicities, spirit crumbs, and serendipity, that cycle we go through can apply to our mind, body, and soul. So even if someone's not overly spiritual right now, or that's not where your focus is in life, these can still appear for you. You don't have to think that it's only for people on a particular type of path. In your mind, for example, that can be like intellectual things. If there's something that you want to study more that might help you in your career, or something that you're just really interested in. If there's a topic that keeps coming up for you, like let's say for me, for a while I was really obsessed with plants and trees, and I was like, I don't really know what to do with this. And so maybe then you start hearing people, again, people might talk about it. You might start seeing posts on Instagram. Your Google algorithm maybe brings up an article about something that you're like, this is fascinating to me. I want to learn more. And so like a book, a course, maybe a particular area that you want to do for school, maybe your minor comes to mind. That's what happened with me for a while. I was doing a plant minor in addition to my art major. It could be a job even. Maybe something you're thinking about is like, you think you might want to work for a particular company, and that comes up, and then maybe it's a different strain of what you're already doing, but it's something that you're really interested in, and then an opportunity comes up where a friend asks you if you'd be interested in that. Those things can happen too. Like, so it can be on a different level. It can be like a career or school or something that's just on your career path that may come up. And then the body. So our bodies are deeply connected to our spirit as well. And sometimes you get hints from your body, and your body can be the intuition. And so your body is telling you sometimes what it needs. And maybe you're feeling very stiff in a certain area, or you're thinking that, you need a different type of movement. And maybe then you start to hear other people talking about a particular type of yoga, or maybe you've never done yoga and you just keep thinking about it and it keeps coming up. And then there's a 30-day challenge that comes up on your Instagram, and one of your friends is doing it. And you can say like, oh, cool, maybe I should do that with my friend, and maybe they can help get me into this. It could be a particular feeling you've been having, or maybe you've been feeling really drained and you need to go to the doctor, and they suggest a few options for you. You're not really sure what to do. And then a certain supplement comes up in discussions and you start to research and you ask your doctor if that might help, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what, that would actually help. Maybe it's a diet change. Maybe you've just been feeling a little off and you need to eat more fruits and vegetables. And then you see someone showing some recipes that really appeal to you. There's a lot of different ways where your body can be telling you what you need next in life. And if you put that question out and you say, like, what can I do to improve this feeling or this pain that I'm having or this discomfort that I'm feeling in my body, and something will come to you. And sometimes it is an energetic thing that you need to deal with as well, and that will come to you as some sort of synchronicity as well. Maybe somebody's talking about a particular type of energy work, or maybe it's a chakra that's related to the body. And see, that's where there's a crossover between all of these things, right? Because we try to do an intellectual process of figuring out what might be wrong, but maybe it's a more of a spiritual embody process that we're looking for. And that's where the serendipity and spirit can sometimes lead us to what we need when we can't figure it out mentally. And then the last one, of course, is the soul. And so this is where I feel a lot of people think that that's the only area that these synchronicities can happen, because it's often people who are on a spiritual path who have the awareness to be looking for them. And so for that, it can be all of a sudden, maybe you start to think in your head that you have a certain gift. You might start thinking about, let's say, tarot cards and be like, why am I thinking about this? But maybe you're also stuck in an area of your life and you're not sure what the next step is. And maybe that's a tool that will help you, and you keep thinking about them. And then one of your friends gives you a set for your birthday and you're like, wow, I did not even think of actually getting them. Or maybe you're at the bookstore and someone has put a particular book in a place that you didn't expect to see, that leads you to a different modality. And often, like I said, it is when you're trying to, when these things first start coming, it's when you start to feel like you're in a rut, maybe. So, even for myself, I was doing the same daily ritual. I was doing my oracle cards and doing a bit of journaling, and it just didn't feel like enough. And then for me, I had been following Danielle Serenk, the Squamish medium, for quite a while, and I'd been listening to all of her podcast episodes, and I was just feeling kind of drained. And it was during the pandemic, and I just needed something more. And she had been talking about this initiation circle, and I didn't really think it was for me. I was like, I'm not at that point. I'm not doing this for anybody other than myself and friends and family. Um, Although I'd been told for many years and many synchronicities that I was meant to be doing this work, I didn't really trust it. And then one particular Friday, I was actually supposed to go into work, and I woke up and was just crying for no reason. And it didn't even feel like an emotional connection to it. It was just this strange, like, waterfall of tears. And my boss was very understanding. It was like, that's cool. It's really quiet. It's, pandemic. No one's coming in for what we are selling. So I stayed home, and immediately when I got off the phone, Danielle went on a live and was saying there were only a couple of spots left. And I just immediately responded because I felt a connection and was like, maybe this is the answer. And I am so very grateful that I did, because that community is what has brought me here. It's having these like-minded people who showed me different areas that I could be working in, and showing me that it's not linear and that you can do multiple things at a time. You don't have to pick a path and then stick to it forever. And so for me, that was a huge spirit crumb, because it was not only her talking about the circle, which was already a synchronicity. It was something that I felt drawn to, but it was a crumb. It was like, this is an introductory price. It's like literally the last day. Here's your opportunity. It was on a silver platter for me from Spirit, and I had the day off. I wouldn't, if I had gotten up like normal and just gotten ready for work and didn't sit to scroll on Instagram because I was just in my usual routine, I wouldn't have done that. But I followed my own body's signal that I needed to slow down, and it led me to somewhere that I can't imagine not having in my life. So I just really am excited about having this podcast now because I'm really hoping that I can bring you some more examples of Spirit Crumbs and break it down a little bit more so that you can start to see if you've had similarities. And it's not just me, I will have other people joining me to speak of their experiences. And I think that that will really help because we all are very different. We all receive our crumbs in different ways. There are so many ways that those can come to us. And in our next episode, I'm actually going to talk about what kinds of things can be crumbs because they're very similar to signs that we receive, and then also how to take action and how to know when it's something that we can take action on, because I think that that's a key part of Spirit Crumbs that actually lead us into something is the actual taking action on it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Spirit Crumbs. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.